if things don't go well for China, and there's big concerns on their real estate market at the moment, and also which is affecting their banking sector because there's so much debt on these developments, and developments that haven't been completed, developments that are just over leverage, and the Evergrande is facing bankruptcy.
It is.
Who's going to keep buying the dirt? Has Australia had enough time to diversify its customer base in terms of what it exports? I don't think it has. And you've got to look at that whole thing. If the main buyer of your products of buying our dirt, we're a mining and agricultural country, and we haven't diversified to other sectors well enough. If that goes down, how is it going to affect the employment market and also affect the housing market?
Before we start, we need to tell you up front we are not a licensed financial planning, accounting or law firm. This is simply an education program which will give you factual information. We do not give any general or specific advice around finance, business, investing, options trading or anything else. That is not what this presentation does. Please see a licensed financial planner when it comes to any investment advice you need.
So the next thing I want to look at is the peace of mind that, inverted commas, that news.com.au is reporting about New South Wales wanting to end no grounds evictions as vacancy rate plummets as the headline. And what it's basically saying is that a landowner cannot just drop a tenant on any grounds whatsoever. It's trying to give people kind of more security when they are renting out a place. They can't get booted out for no reason at all. And instead of having to provide common sense or reasonable reasons, the Premier is saying that those changes would allow for bad tenants to still be evicted and to protect property owners from bad behaviour. It would give the state's ballooning population of tenants greater peace of mind. I think this is an interesting one. I know of situations where a landlord has needed to sell a property while a tenant is still there and kind of go, I've got to break this, guys, and get this property in because it's just not financially working for us right now. And that could be through a personal situation, a circumstance that they're going through. So I know those kind of situations. I think communication is really the key between a landlord and the tenant, and working through those issues, going, hey, we don't want to put you out in the street here. But having said that, and this has come out, of course, in a very interesting market where it's very hard to get rentals of any description.
It is ridiculous.
It
is a ridiculous market right now. And I'm going to point the finger straight at our government. Who the hell changes immigration from 140,000 a year to over 500,000 a year and doesn't think that's going to affect the infrastructure, the price of housing, the price of rentals, all of that kind of thing, creates an environment where venture capitalists from the East are buying over here to make much larger profits. It is the most, it's interesting because, from a Labor government, which is a socialist government, they're killing and they're treading upon those who vote for them. It just drives me nuts.
It's also issues too that they're not talking about, like hospitals and the backlog of trying to get through an emergency ward, those sort of issues too, transportation, public transportation. You're just creating crowds that doesn't have the infrastructure to move them forward or put them somewhere. And that's a real shame. And I think a lot of Aussies are waking up to this, but the whole market in terms of having a rental, I was talking to a real estate agent just the other day, and I said to her, of all the property strategies that are out there at the moment, what do you think are the best ones at the moment? And she actually said to me, I actually think that there are better opportunities elsewhere. Well, no, she didn't say it in those words, but she was saying it is like that we have seen so many tenants just trash properties. They don't look after us like they used to. They just don't, she was saying. And she was talking in reference to some of those areas you've mentioned earlier about where they are, those pockets in Perth, and the tenants aren't looking after them. There's also a move in the property market where a lot of people and investors are looking at shared common areas, so that rather than buying a house and putting one family in it or person in it, they're actually allowing people to hire individual rooms within that house and get a higher yield that way, but lowering the cost for the tenants in that process as well. So you might have one room that's making $300 a week, one that's making $250. Everybody can share the kitchen facilities and common areas, but it's based on the room size that somebody's hiring. That's an interesting concept in this space.
Look, there's a particular demographic that's doing that very strongly in Perth, who are renting houses and then putting all individuals in there. And you're right, and the yields are huge because they would have got sort of Okay, we'll say they would have got $600 worth of rent with it before individually. They're making literally twice that now by renting the rooms out. Look, there's pros and cons on all of that, but it also, okay, to the point where you were saying about people and tenants not having, the trashing places now, I would never excuse that. But there's also, when you're not respected, right? So if you're treated like dirt as a tenant and you're not respected as a tenant, there's probably a temptation not to show that respect back. So I think that their emotional investment, in that property is not as strong. I don't know how I'm explaining this really poorly. I just think that if you're going to treat people like cattle, they're going to act like animals.
I hear what you're saying. On the flip side of that, no landlord wants their house to be turned into a drug lab.
No way in the world. Exactly right. Now, I've had this. Okay, a property I owned, I actually rented out while I was working in radio a long way away, so I needed to do that. And short version is, that they wasn't a drug thing, but just they trashed the place. They kept the place appallingly. It cost a lot of money for the repairs. So I can see both sides of it. But, again, it all comes back to human decency. It all comes down to the fact that right now, society is being ripped apart like no other time in certainly my history or, probably the last 500 years, it kind of feels. If you're going to treat people poorly, they're going to return that favor.
Yes and no. Some people just have no respect.
Yeah.
They just as well. I mean, I remember, when I was renting out a house here in Perth, and what bothered me was that there were other people coming into that. Now I'm fine. You do a bit of a check on who you're letting into the house, and my gut told me that there were more people accessing that house than they actually the names on paper.
Gotcha.
I just knew it.
Okay.
And I told the agent, I said, there's something going on. Find out what's going on. You know, and you want to know because it's your house, it's your property, and you're the one holding the risk on the whole investment, right?
Yeah.
And of course, there was malicious damage done to the property and all this sort of stuff. And you go, it's not worth putting a claim in because the claim to actually get in for malicious damage is just astronomical. And you're they're trying to get rid of those annoying claims. What do you do? And it just eats into your profits.
It does. It does. No,
it's got to be a win-win for everyone, Aaron.
Well, at the moment, it seems to be lose for one particular side, and that needs to be fixed. I mean, the rental situation here in WA is a joke, and it is offensive to me what people have to go through. Good people. I know someone with a very, very, very good job. Okay, a very responsible job, one that even has a tad of prestige about it. Had to apply for 70 homes to find a home. Finally, you get into a bidding war for these places, right? It's look.
An agent was just telling me, they just closed a deal for someone who'd made 20 applications to buy their own home. 20 offers on properties.
Yeah.
Sorry, I interrupted you, but it's the problem of acquiring a home as your own residence as well.
Of course it is.
Versus trying to rent.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Yeah. Oh no, close friends have just sold their place trying to find a new home, right? And it's incredibly impossible. Not impossible, but incredibly unlikely because median house price now in WA is $820,000, right? 820 grand. Come on, right? And that used to be the price of Bondi's house back in the day, not that long ago. So you've got that going on, but then the place is advertised for 820, and you cannot. They won't look at the paperwork unless you put 860 on the paperwork, right? And it becomes a bidding war, and it gets ridiculous. This is not sustainable. This is I think real estate agents in this town need to start telling the truth to people because I think that the lies are pushing the prices.
What do you mean by that? Do you think they're lying?
Yeah, I do.
Real estate agents.
Yeah, something I know. It's a crazy thought. I mentioned it's a bit like politician lying. I think they're lying about the availability of things. I think that they're not putting bids forward for people. No, I'm not saying all of them. Obviously, there's great people out there doing great jobs, but I think that there are, like anything, there's people with lack of ethics, and I think that certainly purchasing properties, if say properties for sale for $820,000, right? That they're not even fulfilling their obligation to put an offer in front of the owner of the property until it's substantially higher than what's been.
Well, the feedback I'm getting too is that these agents who I believe are ethical, with friends of mine, are saying that you're getting people who are selling their house and they're going, "Oh, should I accept it?" And they're going, "This is a really good offer. Okay. This is a really good offer." So I think the temptation is greed and self-interest in this instance.
Yeah, true.
Right? And they're going, "Look." how much do you want? And sometimes, you know, the old line says, sometimes your first offer is your best offer.
Yeah.
Because people go, well, fine, you don't want my money. They'll get insulted. I'll go
Yep.
take it elsewhere if somebody does want it. I don't think this is sustainable. I don't think these prices will last forever. I think it's a good opportunity to start developing other cities away from the main cities in Australia. If government politicians would start thinking that way. Obviously, there's got to be jobs in those areas. We're not short of land in this country.
We're not.
But there's a huge suppression and control of price, or suppression of releasing land in this country, I should say, because they all want you on the grid. They all want you paying their sewage, paying their water rates, paying their electricity,
on that front, okay, of the land being released, okay, I have this on pretty good authority, right, that a couple of the land developments that have been put forward, in quite a few, okay, in the last couple of years, say that they build 25 houses, okay, for this development. Now, so that they can get through all of the rigmarole of the government stuff, not going to carry on, yada, 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 they obviously have to offer those to, you know, there might be one house has to be offered public housing, for argument's sake, right? So of that 25 that they build, one has to be offered that way, okay? What they do is to fulfill that, they do that. Great. And then they sell the 24 other places to venture capitalists in the eastern states who pick it up and put people in rentals because the yield is so high. So what you're doing is you're just creating a generation of forever poor because they'll never be able to afford to own a new home, right? They're being the price of the rent is so bloody high. This is when the cozy relationship between government and business is a very grubby one.
I've seen the fluctuation of rent though go up and down, and down. You got to remember that, you know, prior to this last boom, property boom, prices were stagnated for about 9 years or so. And I think what you've got to realize is that if things don't go well for China, and there's big concerns on their real estate market at the moment, and also which is affecting their banking sector because there's so much debt on these developments and developments that haven't been completed, developments that are just over leverage, and the Evergrande is facing bankruptcy. Who's going to keep buying the dirt? Has Australia had enough time to diversify its customer base in terms of what it exports? I don't think it has. And you've got to look at that whole thing. If the main buyer of your products of buying our dirt, we're a mining and agricultural country, and we haven't diversified to other sectors well enough. If that goes down, how is it going to affect the employment market and also affect the housing market, right? And that's the big unknown in this case. We've dodged a bullet many, many times in this country over other countries that were affected. Our real estate market, though, is very dependent on the mining sector. So that's an interesting play here. It's a bit of an unknown, and how that might affect the real estate market. The
old saying, Australia rides on the sheep's back, right? That's been gone for a long, long time, right? We've been a mining town for a very, very long time, the whole damn country. But obviously the economies that are holding Australia up is the West Australian and the Queensland economies, right? Because it's all about mining. You are spot on. It is not sustainable. We have to diversify. We have a lot of markets here that are being underutilized because of the export market, because trying to balance all of that. Like, okay, be an Australian and go and buy some seafood, right? Or go buy a steak. Okay, why am I paying more for my steak or my seafood here in Western Australia for Western Australian steak or seafood than I would if I lived in Japan?
Taxes, international trade deals.
Exactly. Right. It's ridiculous. You need to look after, number one, this country and the people of this country first. And those who are making policy are not doing that. They're doing it for nefarious and very often very selfish reasons.
It's cheaper to import oranges from the United States than it is to take the homegrown ones and not get a tax benefit for it.
That's right.
It's crazy.
It is crazy. And sort of winding back a little bit on the comment you made before, I had the pleasure on the weekend of spending some time out of Perth and a few sort of country areas. And I'll tell you right now, and I know it's different when you're on holidays to actually living there, but just the way the difference now is so profound that why the hell are we living in these cities? Like, honestly,
it's gorgeous in some parts.
But you're losing your freedoms here, and where the feeling of freedom in these places is just fantastic.
Because people are employees and they feel like they've got to be near the office or the place of work, wherever that might be. And that's why we talk about financial independence.
Totally agree.
And look, being able to make those choices. The internet has certainly changed the game.
Hugely.
It'll be interesting to see where the internet goes from here, and they call it Web 3.0 in terms of artificial intelligence, but also what Elon Musk is doing as far as Starlink is concerned, certainly making it far more accessible for regional areas around the world.
So true.
To access those services.
Well, on the financial front, please, if you want to get more information, get on Blu Sky Factory. Fantastic. It will change your opinions and your understanding of money forever. And the perspective will give you the power to move forward. So blueskyfactory.com.au, no E in the blue sky. Definitely got on board there because information is power. Knowledge is very, very good for you. Get some, and then you can make some great decisions in your life. That's where I'm going on that one.
Absolutely.
All right, we'll wind the show up right there. It's Edge Radio Australia. Thank you very much for being part of the greater wealth.